Call this meeting to order. Well, it's actually already in order because we were in closed session. Neilson, can you do roll call, please?
Contes? Here. Ryan?
Yes.
Phelps?
Yes.
Rodriguez? Here. Trippy?
Here.
Bestam? Here. Fletcher? Here.
Okay, and if everybody could please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on the agenda is a recognition of public comments. And we have 3 people tonight that requested to speak. This is a time when visitors may request to address the Board of Education on any item germane to the role and function of the Board of Education. When I so direct, persons shall stand, give their name, and begin the statements. Persons are asked to refrain from making personal comments regarding any individual. I shall also reserve the right to limit the presentation to 5 minutes, and we'll do so. First is Ms. Mia Hannigan. At the podium, please.
My name is Mia Hannigan. Okay. I would like to talk about the dress code that excludes any non-religious headwear, specifically do-rag, wig caps, bonnets, scarves, head wraps, and cultural headwear that were not yet mentioned. Removing do-rags and other protective cloth from the school's dress code is troublesome. The whole "if I can't have this, why can they" argument is juvenile and intolerable. Will students held agitations for do-rags being allowed and not beanies? From what I had seen, they were all white men. None of them had texture or ethnic hair. They could never realize the significance of protective headwear. JHS is a predominantly white institution. According to USNews.com, 65.6% of our schools white. There's only 34.4% minority enrollment. 11.9% are black students. We are grossly underrepresented in our student body, teachers, and staff, outreach, and social programs. Stripping of us of our culture is simply unjust and unfair. Do-rags do not cover the face or hide one's identity. Students wear do-rags Students wear IDs to provide their identity on top of that and carry passes when not present in the classroom. It doesn't matter how much progress has been made when it comes to black empowerment and fighting against institutionalized racism. The world is swarming with reminders that racism is well and totally alive. The dress code of the school is meant to make sure students follow rules and standards about clothing. Instead, we are met with these unreasonable and unwarranted standards. Diversity is being taken away. Why must we be punished for one's interpretation of our clothing? The do-rag is historical and a cultural symbol of pride. Do-rags support self-care and culture. In 1966, the Akron Beach Journal described the do-rag as a cloth band worn around the forehead as a sweatband to keep the hair in place. The first use of the do-rag was in the 19th century. Enslaved women wore hair wraps to keep their hair out of the way during labor. In the 70s, the do-rag had a new return specifically targeted to black men. Black people tie down, train, and protect their curls with cultural head wraps. In the 90s, the do-rag became symbolic. It represents inner-city black culture. Do-rags represent pride and natural hair. Do-rags make it cool for black men to care about the appearance of their hair. As a piece of history that is still intact, they allow the user to express themselves, and they represent an often misunderstood counterculture. Do-rags are streetwear that have made its way into high fashion. The do-rag is the epitome of creating something from nothing. That is exactly what our culture is about. We turn nothing into something. It is a mark and history that cannot be erased. The do-rag is a true icon. So we ask you to please introduce do-rags, bonnets, and other black and African American specific hairwear back into our schools. We need them. We need to be seen and respected at JHS and in our District 205 schools. Perhaps students that do not agree should make an argument as to why their hairwear is unacceptable rather than shifting the focus on why we cannot have ours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we have Ms. Deb Morty.
Good evening. My name is Deb Marty. I am a grandma and GHS graduate from 1973, kind of dates myself. Lived in Galesburg all my life, and I'm very concerned about what goes on in our schools, public and private. And this evening, I was looking at the District 205 website, trying to find the agenda and the minutes from the last meeting, because I could not attend and wanted to know what had happened. The link to your page for agenda and minutes does not work. You cannot, I'm sorry, what?
Work for me, right?
Well, I just tried it about 50 times and trying to get the agenda for this evening and those minutes. So I'm wondering if whoever your web developer is, maybe you could just let them know that. And the site itself is not very user friendly. And I have just retired from Knox College about a year ago and worked in the IT department for 24 years. And if we had a website set up like that, we would have been crushed by students and parents by not having information available. So maybe if you could just look at that, please, it would help out a lot. I do not have an agenda for tonight because I couldn't find one. And what I was actually looking for was the curriculum of schools. So I'm wondering if you guys can tell me where I can find that or who I can call to get one. Anybody got an idea? Yes. Okay, great. Do I just give you my information? I'll just put it on a piece of paper. That would be wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
And next speaker, I believe it's Miss Nina Smith or Smith. I'm not sure.
Alright, my name is Nina Smith. I have no children, but I paid school taxes my entire life. And Debbie's my sister. I have tons of nieces and nephews, and we come from a large family of 8 children. My issue tonight that I would like to bring up is about the roundtable in last week's paper. And the question was, should schools phase out Halloween parties? There were 5 people that commented in the roundtable. Courtney Wallace said, "We are teaching our kids to exclude." Terry Bulkley said, "Let the kids continue to enjoy Halloween." Stephen Podwowski said, "Erodes our right to display Marvel heroes." Charlie Brunner said, "Autumn-themed festivities make sense." William Urban said, let kids think school might be fun." All of these articles were really good and all positive for continuing the typical school Halloween celebration. I remember going to Hitchcock School and parading around the block with all of the costumes and joy that it brought to us. It is one of my fondest memories of grade school. And you don't have to spend a fortune on costumes. Mom and dads and kids can get creative and make them at home or go to a secondhand store because they are everywhere. It was so much fun and completely harmless. Please stop putting policies into place that are stopping kids from enjoying school. I don't think they can celebrate giving Valentine cards out either. Christmas is out of the question too. I'm sure when all of you school board members, including Mr. Raspel, were a child, Halloween was a very fun time in your memories. Please, next year, give up this ridiculous idea of taking costumes and classroom fun away from these kids. They have suffered enough with all of the forced liberal agenda. I know if I had a child in school, they would be going to a private school and taken away from this nightmare that is going on right now. That's it.
Okay, moving on, we have presentations to the board. The first presentation is a tax levy presentation.
Good evening. The board has a copy of the presentation that is on the screen. And tonight we're just going to be talking about the proposed levy, and then just as a reminder, next month the board will be presented with a levy certificate for approval and discussion. Okay. All right, so I wanted to start today because since this is something that we only do once a year and we do have 2 new board members, I wanted to do a brief review of how our fiscal cycle and how our levy cycle interact in the school district. So if you take a look at the graphic up on the screen, you see what our school district annual cycle is. And so we're gonna start with June and July of each year and how that progresses through the year and the different fiscal events that we're gonna be talking about tonight. So in July of each year, a new fiscal year begins. In September, we pass an annual budget, which everyone participated in this year. That annual budget covers the time period of July 1st through June 30th of each year. Each December, the board is presented a levy certificate for that tax year, and we'll kind of talk about how it gets confusing with the different tax years and when we receive those revenues. But the board passes the levy in December. It has to be to the county clerks by the third Tuesday of the month. In April or May, this past 2 levy cycles, we've actually received our extensions a little bit later than April or May, but we received what's called a tax extension, and that actually tells us what we've actually received from what we've asked from the tax levy. So the levy certificate is just a request, and then based on the property values that are determined by the assessor's office and finalized in the spring, we receive the actual extension, which tells us how much we actually got from what we had asked for in essence. Then in May, we amend the budget, and then in June is the end of the fiscal year, and we start to receive our first receipts of our property taxes. Once again, that can vary from year to year. We receive them as early as May. Typically, we start to receive them the end of June. Sometimes they've been delayed even later. Warren County has been delayed the last couple of years due to some processing issues internally that they've been experiencing. Okay, so the next graphic is our tax year versus our school district fiscal year. And this is where things get a little confusing. So I tried to condense a graphic to help everyone understand. So tax years run on a typical calendar year. So those run from January 1st to December 31st of each year. Property taxes are always a year in arrears. So the property taxes that you'll be paying in 2022 are actually for your home and your property's value in 2021. So our tax year 2020 revenues, we received those in 2021, and our tax year 2021 revenues will be received in 2022. And if anyone else hates the 2020s, it's very difficult to get all the twos out that we have to talk about. Our school district fiscal budget and fiscal year runs an entirely different schedule. So as I said before in the previous slide, our budget and our fiscal year starts on July 1st and goes to June 30th. We are on the accrual method of accounting, which makes this a little more challenging in terms of when our revenues are applied to our budget. So each year, 53% of the property tax revenues come from the current year's tax levy that was passed in the prior December. So that example would be December of 2020 last year. That's where 53% of our revenues for this year come from. And then 47% of our property tax revenues are going to come from the next year's levy, which will be the levy certificate that we're passing this year. So for fiscal year 22 budget, which is what we're in right now, 53% of the property tax revenues come from the 2020 tax year, and then 47% come from the 21 tax year. So the levy cycle versus the budget cycle, there are challenges with this, especially on the accrual method. So when the budget is passed in September of each year, 47% of our local revenues in the budget are basically somewhat unknown. Now we take trend data, we look at what we received in the past, we start communicating with the assessor's office, we start communicating with the county clerk to see if we can get some idea of what we think the EAV increase or decrease will be for that year. But those numbers are not finalized until the following spring. So we're making assumptions on our budget in July and August, what's passed in September, on revenues that we won't get confirmation of until the following April. And when you're on the accrual method and 47% of your revenues are in flux, that makes it a little nerve-wracking if you don't have ample fund balances. So this is why our fund balance goal that is in the board
policy.
Thank you. And the board policy is so important to make sure that we have those ample fund balances so that when we start receiving those revenues in June, that we can book back, because we're on the accrual method, that 47%. The assumption, go ahead. Our assumptions for our tax year 2021 levy are a projected increase in our EAV, which is the equalized assessed valuation. That's the value of all the commercial, residential, and railroad property within the district. We're anticipating a 1.7115% increase. That is inclusive of a $9.9 million TIF that came off the books this year, which is tax incremental financing. We have another TIF that is expiring at the end of this year. So we will have additional revenues that will go on for the 22 tax year. But we're looking at a 1.7 roughly % increase in EAV growth for Knox County. And then Warren County's projected EAV growth is 6%. We anticipate using our ESSER funds to offset some of our property tax revenue needs so that we can lower the tax rate, and we'll see that on the next screen. So this is our 5-year trend rate data, and you'll see that this year we're proposing a tax rate of $4.77. That is a 12-cent decrease from last year. Since we do have ESSER revenues, we feel comfortable in reducing the amount of revenue that we're requesting for local property taxes. And if you go to the next slide, this is actually the EAV taxable table that we are proposing. And so we're asking for $213,501 fewer dollars from property taxes this year compared to last year. And just to summarize, our proposed tax rate for this year is $4.77. This represents an 11-cent decrease from tax year 2020, and the $213,000 of reduced revenue will be offset by our ESSER funds. Does anyone have any initial questions?
So, if I'm reading this right, we'll be lowering the levy, but the EAV in Warren County though is 6%.
It's increasing 6%. Mm-hmm.
So we should be getting more money because of the EAV. And I can attest to that because I got my side of Warren County and it did go up. So you are dead on.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, I didn't look at this pre. We didn't have this news. This was new strategy. Good. But so most of the decrease is coming out of the education fund and
The education fund.
Most is coming out of the education fund, and that's not. And using ESSER monies to displace local funds are absolutely okay. Otherwise, you would be doing it.
Correct. We're lowering the tax rate. So we have additional federal revenues due to ESSER 1, 2, and 3 over the last 2 years. So we've been able to increase our fund balances, which our auditor talked about last month. So we feel comfortable in lowering the tax rate for that reason, and the majority of those ESSER revenues are sitting in our Fund 10, our education fund. So we feel comfortable in lowering the rate this year to that level.
Because as we met and talked about our goals, we felt there may be a need for additional resources to affect some of the changes. This would still leave us with revenue and resources to do that?
Yes, it will. So we are proposing that, and we'll be talking about this next month. We will be looking at spending down some of our fund balances to do some projects, but that will leave an ample amount of money within the ed fund and our other funds to meet the board goals that are in board policy.
So this 12 cents per thousand, what does that mean to a taxpayer?
So your property value is based on, if you have a $100,000 house, you're paying 33% of the value of that house. So you would take the $33,000 and you would multiply that times 11 cents, and that would be your property value.
Which is?
So
let's say here $40
per $100,000, it would save you $40.
Okay.
So a question, I like that we're able to lower the levy, but looking forward, and as we sit here a year from now, is this a prudent move that a year from now, you may be sitting in front and say, hey, we need to take that 11 cents back.
It's always possible. It's very difficult to predict, especially in Illinois, what's going to happen. But given the level of fund balances that we currently have, I feel comfortable that we should be able to sustain this or only incrementally increase it over the next couple of years. But that is with all of our state revenues holding and our federal revenues holding, excluding the ESSER funds. Obviously, those are one-time funds. But if our federal grants and our state grants continue at the level of funding that they're at, I think we can sustain this. If that changes for some reason, or we have some financial situation locally that were to change, EAV were to drop, we were to have some sort of, let's say, a financial settlement that was unpredicted, we may have to make some adjustments. But right now, given all the assumptions and the factors that we have, I think we can sustain this moving forward.
At one time, you came to us and said there may be move from the state level to turn over the TRS obligations to local schools.
Yes.
Has there been any other discussion of that recently?
There has not been any discussion recently, but there was a tremendous amount of legislation that came out of Springfield last spring. So from my experience, usually the conversations about pension systems happen on election years, which, as we know, we're going to have an election next year for governor. So I would anticipate that the conversations will start again regarding that, and there could be very quick action that would need us to make an adjustment. But we do have the fund balances right now to be able to make that adjustment. I would hope that if that shift, the cost shift for the pensions, started, that they would give us some time, at least a year, to plan for that. And if that did happen, then we may have to look at increasing our tax rate back to that ed fund maximum or close to it. But right now, we don't have that situation.
Thank you.
And to confirm, we have met all of our board's financial goals.
Yes, you have. You've exceeded all your goals.
That's good to hear. And I also see in the presentation that this is the lowest tax rate since at least 2016 or before.
That is correct.
So that's good news. Well, that's excellent. I'm sure the taxpayers will be pleased to hear the potential lowering of the tax rate.
If anyone has any questions between now and next month, please let me know. Once again, we'll be bringing a certificate. We do not have to do a truth in taxation hearing, obviously because we're not increasing over 5%, so we will not have that. So if you have any questions before that, please let me know.
Well, I guess I'd like to add too, I wish former board member Statham was here because each year when we talked about lowering the rate, he'd say, yes, but my bill's going up. So we're actually not just talking about lowering the rate, we're talking about lowering the ask. So the amount of revenue we were making in, we're actually cutting taxes. And so I see Mr. Statham's better half in the back row. So I'm hoping that when you go home, you'll inform him that we are actually cutting taxes so that maybe he can come and tell us congratulations next month.
And again, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a presentation to the board, reference board goals, and this will be from Steele Elementary School.
Hello, we are from Steele's School Improvement Team, and my name is Hannah Oriana. I teach 4th grade at Steele.
My name is Megan Lee. I'm an interventionist at Steele.
I'm Leanne Sherpy, and I'm Dean of Students at Steele.
And so as an SIP team, we started with the district goal to address math readiness in our building. So the goal we primarily looked at was the ultimate district goal is for all students to be performing at or above state standards in all areas and in all grades. Therefore, the district looks great. Interim goals to achieve this ultimate goal by the end of the 2026-2027 school year. By the end of the 2021-2022 school year, no less than 30% of all students in all grades and all subgroups will meet or exceed state standards as measured by the IAR assessment and SAT assessment in reading and mathematics. So with that being said, we looked at this goal to address the number of ways that we could move with this with our math goal throughout our building.
Okay, so there are many strategies that we are implementing to help meet this district goal, such as full implementation of iReady Math across all grade levels, tips and tricks sessions led by our classroom teacher, Mrs. Golden. She's our iReady guru. Diagnostic growth assessment, which is assessed monthly. Rotations, prerequisite skills, and enrichment. And then I'm going to let Miss Lee talk about our second quarter challenge for iReady for Shoot for the Stars.
Okay, so as a SIP team, we decided to create a school-wide challenge. With the help of the math committee, we set a goal for the students to complete by passing, not just completing, but passing 2 lessons a week with the expectation of K2 completing 12 lessons by December 17th and 3-4 with completing 15 lessons. As students pass lessons, they earn colorful stars, which I explained in this marvelous video that got sent out to the entire school.
Well, hey there, guys. Long time no see. It's your pal, Miss Lee, and I've got some exciting news for you. I know you're wondering, Miss Lee, what you doing in outer space? And here's the reason why. Because you guys are going to reach for the stars. I know, crazy, right? You're thinking to yourself, Miss Lee, I am a star. And you're right. But we're going to reach for some stars. And we're going to compete in a challenge, an iReady challenge. And what's going to happen is you are going to earn stars. Yes, stars. To put on our great, big, beautiful school-wide bulletin board. Here's how you're going to earn your stars. So for every 5 lessons that you pass, not just complete, but you have to pass, you will get a chance to put your name on a fabulous star. You'll get to walk down to the office. You'll get to put your name on the star and put it up on the wall of fame. And not only that, but you'll get a raffle ticket where you'll get to put your name in for a drawing. And we might pull names every week. We might pull names twice a week. It's really random. We'll pull for prizes. But we will pull names out of our iReady Bucket Challenge raffle bucket, and your name will earn you a prize. Now, what's that prize, Miss Lee? I know you're wondering. I'm not going to tell you. It's a surprise, silly goose. But you'll get to put your name on a star. You'll earn a raffle ticket every time you earn 5 lessons. So for 5 lessons, if you pass, not just complete, but pass 5 iReady lessons, you'll get your name on a yellow star. If you pass 5 more lessons, meaning 10 lessons, you'll get your name on an orange star. And then it will just keep going. We'll fill our hallways full of all the stars that I know you guys are. And we'll put them all around this beautiful image of a rocket ship. And the goal by the end of this lovely year, so before we go on Christmas break, is to get 12 lessons done or 15 lessons done, depending upon what grade you're in. And once you've completed those lessons, you will get a certificate. So by the end, if you have completed 12 or 15 lessons, then you will earn your certificate.
So as you can see, this challenge has truly gotten the students excited to complete their iReady MyPath lessons, which are geared toward their abilities and what they need to work on based on the diagnostic they take at the beginning of the year. Looking at this week prior to the lovely challenge, we only had 970 lessons passed, but as of the start of the challenge, we have had a 47% increase, which is just amazing. And even though that number is awesome, the joy that you see in these kids' eyes when they actually pass lessons, they get to come down to the office, they get to share with the lovely office ladies who go woo woo, they get to share with their classmates, they get to share with their teachers, and they find me somewhere because I'm in space, of course, and they give me hugs as well. Just the magic that that's bringing to them to feel like they're accomplishing their goal and achieving something amazing is more than words. So, yeah.
Any questions? All right.
Ms. Grace, can you explain to people that may not be familiar with Ready Math, if someone were to take 12 lessons by the end of December, can you explain the difference between regular classroom instruction and the lessons?
Sure.
So the classroom instruction that happens from the teacher in the room is actually at grade level content. So they're giving exposure for them to have mastery at grade level. The iReady lessons they're speaking of are an individual math path. So the kids have taken a test and it tells them where they are and what prerequisite skills they need in order to be successful. So these are reteaching of those prerequisite skills. It could be that we have a second grade student that is doing kindergarten level on their iReady lessons because they need to build up some of those foundations so they can really glean information from the classroom lesson. And we may have a second grade student that is working on fifth grade lessons because they're ready to be pushed forward. So it is really individualized to the student. When we say that they've passed, we want them to pass 2 tests per week. That could take a student 30 minutes per lesson, or it could take a student 45 minutes per lesson. It just depends on what level they're on. We do have students that have already gotten their red stars in the first week, which means 15 lessons. We have lots of kids asking if they could work on it at home. And so over the weekend, we saw a big jump in the number of lessons students pass. The fact they have to pass it rather than just complete it or a number of minutes has really changed it too. So they're slowing down, they're taking their time, and they're trying to pass. But they're over the moon for their colored star. Any other questions?
No, thank you,
All
very
right, thank you guys.
Thank you. That's certainly good news. Moving on, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns?
I have one question.
Yes, Mark.
Where are we, I saw revenues, there's still money going into the medical trust fund. Where's that money coming from?
So the money that goes into the medical trust fund is the district's portion of premiums and the employee's portion of premiums. And then we pay the premium bill out of the trust
Oh, okay.
each month. So that's where you'll see revenue and expenditures coming in and out.
And there's still a small amount being paid to management.
That's
When does that end?
For,
The old self-insurance.
so that ended in July. So there's probably reconciliation
Okay,
from previous
$1,700.
bills. But that actually ended in July.
So our relationship then is.
Right.
Thank you.
Allison?
Cervantes?
Yes.
Lionel?
Yes.
Phelps?
Yes.
Rodriguez? Aye. Sharpie?
Aye.
Bastian? Aye. Fletcher? Aye.
Okay. Next, we have the curriculum report. Dr. Springer.
Thank you. I wanted to bring Ms. Ritchie up here shortly. We met as a curriculum committee, member Cervantes and member Butcher, just almost a couple weeks ago, I believe. And we talked about a new support through the Student Services Program. Currently, we require 28 credits for our GHS diploma. The state requires 16, so we're well above the expectation. We do recognize that some of our students are getting to that 20 credit and 22 credit point and are lacking some of those electives to get them across the finish line and they're ready for the workforce. And so then they'll leave us and they'll go to Ray's or somewhere else because their diploma requirements are less. And so we're looking how we can support our students who are ready for the workforce. We also have some students who want to do some internships and some dual credit opportunities. And really what's holding them back are those elective opportunities. And so they're able to leave, get what they need by getting that diploma from another entity. So we're trying to circumvent that process.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes, sir.
Can students just enroll themselves in Raise?
Yes.
I thought they had to be sort of asked to leave or something. They can just drop out and sign up somewhere else.
That's what's occurring. Ms. Ritchie, if you wanted to come up and
Sure.
talk a little bit briefly.
Nice.
You have a handout in front of you that Ms. Ritchie is going to emphasize. What we really want to do is create a pathway for our students who are ready for the workforce while still maintaining rigor and high expectations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Springer. Good evening, members of the board. RAISE does require a referral, although there are times that they do take students where a referral is not completed on our end. So there are times that that occurs. The catalyst
Do we want
for-
that to happen though?
Do we want that to happen?
Yes.
That is kind of a loaded question. I do want that to happen in some regards because that is their pathway to a high school diploma. I would like to create the opportunity for them to earn that with us, which is their desire. So that's what I'll kind of explain a little bit more about that to you. The catalyst for bringing this plan to you, and right now this is just for your review, there's no action on this, is when I became the principal of Galesburg High School North. Around this time of year, I had students request for us to provide them with a referral to raise. They were understanding that if they transfer to raise, then they can complete a high school diploma with 22 credits. They had many circumstances, many of them beyond their control, frankly, that they needed to work outside of the home. Some of them live on their own. There's a lot of factors or reasons for this, but the one thing that was very similar was almost all of them were already employed. So when they asked to go to raise, frankly, I was heartbroken because these were students that I felt were very successful with us, successful at Galesburg High School North, successful GHS as a whole, and now finding myself in that same situation with our students that are in the Student Success program. So began to look at best practices and how to give our students these more focused career and life ready skills. We want them to have a high school experience that gives them the opportunity for choice and electives as well, and to be also college ready, which is why with this proposal we're offering the space there where we still have significantly more credits required than the state of Illinois requires of us. So you'll see, as Dr. Springer mentioned, 16 units for the state of Illinois. Galesburg High School at current is 28. If a student passes everything, they will earn 32 if they complete all 4 years of high school. So with our proposed career pathway diploma, we are not reducing the number of credits beyond the GHS requirement, other than, go ahead and do that, providing them with a little more focused career work. So we would like to have this opportunity this year only for students who are requesting or their families to participate. So we would have them apply. We would review the candidates to ensure they've met the conditions, the parameters of the program. So you can see we would like them, and this is just a proposal again at this point, that they complete 2 of the following 6 that are listed there, so that they're already currently working out in the community, that they're enrolled in a dual credit course. That was something when we collaborated with Member Cervantes and Member Betcher, that was something important to them as well in their goals. Enrolled in a work-study program. A lot of the students in the Student Success program are enrolled in the work-study program, just as they were under Principal Spring at North Pryor. Enrolled in a GABC course. We would like to encourage that with our students as well. And then we would also like, if appropriate for them to complete an internship in the community. We would like to collaborate with GABC in that area as well. And finally, there we have some great courses on Ingenuity that have a career-related focus that we can provide content and really specialized work around career readiness with our school counselor, Ms. Close. So what we are proposing is that for this school year, it's just a pilot with student success and support. In following years, 2022 to 2023, the board could decide if you'd like this to have broader application. It would then require modifications because the number of credits to graduate will be modified due to moving to a 7-period day anyways, as well as there are some changes with Illinois high school graduation credits that are coming down the pipe, such as adding foreign language as a graduation requirement. So there are changes coming either way. So we welcome your feedback, or if you have any questions. I do have students right now that would like to go to raise if there's not an option.
How many students would this affect potentially?
So I would anticipate, right now I know of 4. Right off the bat, I know 4. And have spoken to me about raise. I would say definitely less than 10. If you are going to win $1 million, I would say 6 to 8 total this school year.
So what's your thought? So this year, what's your thought process if we make some changes like this? What's your thought process for the number going forward if you offer such a thing?
I think the important thing to me is to create as much opportunity as possible. So that's different for every student. For some, that's AP courses. For some, that's dual credit, and those are opportunities that we want to provide and take away any barrier to offer this to students. Our Twilight program right now, we're offering students the chance to come in after school to complete credit recovery because so many students are behind that never were before. Ideally, we would really be pushing our students to be college ready in every single instance. So we won't stop doing that. This would just focus in more on the students who we know they have a more career related path. They're vocal about that. They know that through having such an amazing GABC program, we know they found their passion. My nephew was one of those students. My nephew said to me, Aunt Mindy, you work in the school. Why did it take till I'm a junior for me to be able to weld? And I love it so much. So it's something that I think that some would see this as reducing rigor. Absolutely not. It's the amount of rigor in those credits, not the number of credits. It's the experiences within those courses, not the number of them, that I think is most important here.
Can you go back to the previous slide which gave the two things that they have to?
Absolutely.
So you have to have two of those found. And under working, is that 1 hour a week? Is it 20 hours a week? Does it not matter?
We didn't really think of any stipulations around that. I find that our students are working far more hours than I would prefer that they are. Students are very sleepy. We've all, many of us in this room, spoken to employers about them not working late. Some have worked during school hours, and we do make those calls, but the reality of the needs in the workforce right now cause different to happen.
So do students make an application for this then?
If you do approve this, we would create an application, yes. We have some things in mind, but obviously we would like your feedback and we want to ensure that this aligns with the board's goals.
If a student does choose to do this because they believe they're going to go into a welding career, and then shortly after entering that career, they decide that they want to pursue a collegiate path. How would this impact their admission to colleges?
So for that student, we would be looking really closely, as we do now, at what requirements are needed for either path. So that's something that we would have to look at very closely. And there would be certain, usually around junior year is when the kids kind of hone in a little more on what they're actually interested in doing and what successes they've had and what they're excited about. A lot of these students, we're adding in, another art class, and we're saying, okay, do you have an interest in this? And we want our students to learn about hobbies as well. That's an important part of life too. But when they get to that point where they have circumstances where they really need to be done, in some of these cases, they walk out the doors and they don't graduate from high school. And that's really the reason why I don't like that Race sometimes takes students we didn't refer. Yet, if the student graduates, I'm ultimately pleased that they did.
I think the other piece to note, as you mentioned previously, is that the rigor is still there within those core content areas. And so we are not lessening the work of the diploma. So if they elect to go to a career pathway or they elect to go to a collegiate pathway, we have set them up for success in that way.
It seems like we're doing the opposite of what we did 2 years ago, when we brought the credit requirements from Galesburg North, the equivalent to the number of credits for a Galesburg certificate diploma. So what you're proposing here is that we offer 2 diplomas. No, one's called a career pathway diploma, and the other one's going to be a JHS diploma.
So it's still a Galesburg High School diploma. So there's absolutely truth to what you just stated. The difference here is that focus on the work and career related skills. So it's not just saying you have fewer requirements, it's we're going to free you up some space to have these work related experiences and career exploration courses.
This is giving students the ability to, yes, so we're taking away what is currently happening, which is taking classes to take classes, because we told them they had to have so many credits to graduate. They completed the actual state requirement credits, the number of English classes, the number of math classes, they've completed those. But now we're still requiring them to take additional credits because we require this many credits over the state number of credits. And so now they're staying in school and they have no motivation to stay there because they're taking electives for no reason. So rather than take electives for no reason, let's help them determine what they're interested in, and maybe it's additional support in GVC, or maybe it's getting an internship with somebody in town, but it's supervised and it's allowing them to have supervision and access to staff at the high school to continue talking and working through some of those things in addition to the work that they're already doing. And rather than just saying, okay, I'm done with school, give me the referral to raise so I can get my diploma and I can just not do anything.
Similar to like work study we get in the college. Young people have experience with work and kind of reflect on that as a great step. Similar to that. Okay, so what?
And for a large segment of our student population, this won't align with their goals. It won't. So it's another opportunity for them, but it is not intended to meet the needs of all of our students, not even close.
I think that's the importance of the application, so that they're having the ability to have a conversation with someone to talk about what does that pathway look like to them. It's not just an easy out. It's let's think about what you want in your future. Where are your interests at, and how can we help you meet them, versus, a handful of students or sometimes more feeling like they're just coming to school to come to school. And we know, based on what we're seeing and what we have seen, that motivation matters. Motivation matters in school attendance, motivation matters in behavior in the classroom. So we want them to have a desire to be there. And so why are we not helping them be ready for life beyond GHS? And this is an opportunity for us to see if this works as one of those possible pathways, which is why we kept dual credit in there, because sometimes it's not about I'm ready to go to work, but I'm ready to explore what's beyond GHS, and how do I do that without, graduating early maybe and going to college already. This is a different opportunity to do that. So this isn't just about work and vocation. It's about opportunities to say, where am I at in my education at GHS, and how can I continue thinking about moving forward?
So I just want to understand a little better. So are we going to have two different diplomas here? So one for it's going to be the same amount of credits no matter what, and one's going to be
different number of credits.
It says 22 plus per.
So everyone's is going to be called the proposed career pathway, or no?
I think that's just the terminology so that you can see what is made up under that diploma, but it's still a GHS diploma. Because at the end of the day, they're still earning the state required things that require a diploma. And more. We require more.
We have 2 tiers of diplomas.
No, it just means that you have the ability to determine what your diploma looks like.
Right, okay, that's what I mean.
Clarification.
It's not gonna be like half the school.
Right, it's not gonna be half the school.
Individualized, and only certain kids that qualify, and that would benefit.
2 years ago, we had a parent come to us asking us to let her child not come to class at Galesburg High School because she wanted to finish college when she was 15 or something. And if we have a situation like this, shouldn't we say that person wants to go to college early? Yes, you can leave after 22 credits.
That's a different conversation.
But isn't it really the same? They decided a career pathway, though. It's different than the career pathway we have under the parameters of this system.
So when we met to discuss this,
Remember
the
this.
curriculum committee, we decided that students should attend 7 semesters of high school.
I think it's very nice to figure out ways of getting children to finish high school. And to give various pathways to reach them. I'm just concerned that it's significantly different, and have three electives is what makes things interesting, isn't it? But people don't want it though. That's what you're saying.
Not for everybody. I mean,
It's not equitable. Make it equitable.
not everybody wants to take innumerable electives. I mean, there are some people who really enjoy taking some of those classes because they're interested in it. And I don't, forgive me because I don't know what the curriculum 100% looks like. But if I had an opportunity, so here's an example for me. I have the number of credits and I could opt to take yearbook as an elective. Or if I'm interested in photography or photojournalism, maybe I get an internship with a local journalist, and that's my intern. So instead of taking the elective as a yearbook and having my seat time in the school, I know that this is where I want to go, and so this is the internship that I'm going to have. And that's just the one that comes off of my head because in my mind, yearbook is still an elective. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's the only one that came to my mind in the moment.
So my thought process on this is, and I've said this for a long time, not all students are four-year university students. And this, to me, gives the opportunity for these students to weld, sheet metal, whatever. And we all know in the labor world today, there's not the technology and all that. We have a big gap. We have very aged and very young, and we just don't have young people coming into this. I love this opportunity. Now with JVC and all that, we can help some of these students maybe find their niche that's not going to Ford University or whatever, and they could go into the working world with a diploma. They didn't. A lot of times, in my past, it was the GED students. We don't want that, and I don't want them going to raise either. I applaud this, that this gives us some dynamics that we need in today's world.
So maybe that's a better example. Instead of spending my time sitting in a class doing yearbook, because that is somewhat interesting to me, I have an opportunity to take a welding class, which is going to be a little bit more motivating to me because it's actually getting me ready for a trade. That's a better example.
But I have a question though, because I mean, there's other positions out there. So, I mean, we already have GABC, so those things are already there in place. Are there going to be options for students who want to go into other fields to do internships? Because we're saying internships, right? So, as an example, if I'm in, graduate school, I'm going to go do an externship somewhere. Is that what we're talking about when we're talking about internships? And how are you going to connect these children with, young adults, with these community members, because this can be even difficult for people in college. So how are we making those connections to make this a possibility for these?
I think that's building the application process, identifying what the students are passionate about, and then locating those individuals within the community. Making sure that, to members to Montez's point, that it's individualized. So there may be something that we currently don't offer, which is very likely, and we will have to seek out an internship supervisor. That's not, our desire to partner with the community is large, and the community's response is also reciprocated. We have people out there that are willing to take on students to learn a trade or learn a different professional role. I'm confident of that. Even based on our district improvement meeting most recently, we have several folks willing to step up and connect with our youth.
When I started in 2005, I worked in the GABC. I was the CTE counselor. I had that role for 2 years, and at that time we had a very well-developed job shadow program with several employers in the community. Several Rotarians volunteered for transportation. It was really, you remember this, Principal Houston? It was really something that students would intern at a medical office. The opportunities really were endless. It was rare that we could not partner someone up. Sometimes it took more time, but I think that cultivating those relationships in the community are another need that we all see as well.
I gotta say, I'm a little concerned about the second part of step 2. Because the way I'm looking at it, you don't necessarily have to have an internship. You could be taking a class at GABC and then take an online class on Ingenuity and then get your diploma without any, support from the community or at all. So I'm a little concerned about that. And I also gotta say, I'm a little disappointed in the ROE and the fact that through RAISE, they're circumventing our diploma process. So I don't like that at all. As for whether or not I'm supportive of this or not, I'm not real sure at this point. I think I need to, I don't want to hinder any student in their pathway to success, but I want to make sure that they do get the full experience. I know that even in, I've had 3 daughters attend liberal art colleges, and what they emphasize is learning about all kinds of things that's outside of your lifestyle. And by not taking elective classes and getting a diploma, they might not have the opportunity to take an art class, which might thrust them into an entirely different career path or any number of different electives. So, I don't know, I need to think about this a little bit for myself.
Sure.
But thank you for the presentation.
Absolutely, and I invite anyone, you can sit down and chat a little bit more about specifics of this or desires that you have or changes that you would like made before next month.
And I do encourage you to reach out, but I would argue that our curriculum actually is set up pretty close to a liberal arts opportunity, as it stands now. I think about and I want us to keep scale in mind. We're not talking about half of the high school student population. We're talking about, at this point, less than a dozen. And if providing them this opportunity allows us to continue to work with them and to help them continue to develop skills that we think are still required of them, this is an opportunity for us to do that that's not necessarily tied to a class setting that has no interest to them, right? And I just think that it provides us a lot of opportunities, but I do encourage you to reach out to Mindy. She has thought about this a lot, and I'm not articulate tonight for a lot of reasons, but I thought that it was
I'll tell you
good
what
idea.
my concern was that 16 is required by the state, and we require 28. And the difference between that is so many students not graduating. And that's ridiculous. Not only can accommodate and make exceptions and be a little bit more creative about education, but we can encourage all types of people to be successful and get it all. And that's what kind of really stood out to me.
Yeah, I also wasn't aware of this, the state requirement of 16 units. That's substantially less, and I wonder why they don't, require a higher level. I don't know.
Well, and to be fair to the state too, just as GHS used to be, there are some 3-year high schools and they don't differentiate. So one of the reasons it's a 16 credit issue is because there are some schools that have three years, credit bearing years. And just procedurally speaking, we do intend to put this on next month as a for your consideration. But if you have any questions between now and then, please direct them to me or Mrs. Ritchie or Dr. Springer, and we'll try to put all those concerns into the proposal for next month, given what the conversation is. But for tonight, it's just information.
Also, could you send us a copy of your presentation so we can have that too?
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay,
We'll be on to the agenda, correct?
This is both, yeah.
Next on the agenda is the special education report.
Good evening. Special Ed continues to work on trying to hire paraprofessionals to support our classrooms. Every time we think we bring more new hires to the board, we receive more resignations. So updates to where we are right now, we currently have 2 openings in Bright Futures due to recent resignations. The The other positions have been filled other than our job coach position, which we have an interview set up for to try to fill that position. For any questions?
I believe it was probably last year you used to present enrollment data.
Yes, it was attached to our, you didn't get it?
I didn't receive it, no. But I did it.
Okay, it was attached to my report. I usually do it about every other month, just based on trying to keep up with the changes. From the last time I did it in, I believe it was September, we have increased by 9 students. But at the same point of increasing, we're up and down. So as of 2 months later, we've increased by 9, but we probably had about 28 students come and go during that time frame.
Okay. Well, like I said, it's not part of the agenda, and it does provide useful information for us. So
I sent it to the district, but I can send it to you so you have it.
all right, thank you. Next on the agenda is the building reports. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I appreciate the brevity and succinctness of all the reports. They're easier to read and they get more information because of that.
I concur. I also got to say that I probably look at the reports even in more detail now that because they're shorter, and I look at them with the mind's eye of the board goals and what the schools are doing to help us achieve those goals. So I do appreciate that. Next on the agenda is the enrollment report.
You can see, it was, the enrollment is down 41 from a year ago at this time, which continues a negative trend, unfortunately. Although it did slow somewhat from month to month, so hopefully that's also a sign of positive progress, but obviously that's something we continue to keep our eye on.
Any questions or comments?
I think the only comment that I'll make, because I know that people catch their breath when they hear a negative enrollment decline. I will just say that this is statewide.
I think it's probably beyond statewide.
Well, yes, it is beyond statewide, but it is definitely not specific to our district. This is something that is occurring, and it is occurring for a variety of reasons, and there are a lot of smart brains looking at why it is happening.
Thank you.
Trending over the last 20 years, and it's anticipated 1.5% a year.
Okay, moving on.
Kindergarten.
Well, maybe that's a telling of the future. That's the beginning. Next on the agenda is the Building and Grounds Committee report. Who's taking this one?
I guess I am today. We're going to start with some pictures. Favorite part. So, for the most part, we should have students do lots of this because they've been living in the building and faculty and staff for a few weeks now. I guess it's to be measured in months. But there's still some spaces that have not been released to students yet. And I'm going to try to identify these for us. And then all 3 of these are of the library, what had been the library, which will be our future library as well. And that building was built in the 70s, mid-70s. There's new flooring and lighting throughout, and new ceilings and painting. Half of it's carpeted. The carpeted area, I believe, is the library half of it, where you have books and things like that. This other side over here, which is to the, west of it, is the area that our CSI program will be taking place, the computer repair and all that will take place as in part of the library. So that's getting built out in that area. This is looking across into where the circulation desk had been. The area behind there is the remodeled teacher's lounge. In the first area, you can see the copy machines that have been. I touched the screen, Allison. Can you fix me, please? Okay, thank you. And beyond that is a very large teacher lounge with accommodations for, I'm told, 15 microwave ovens.
18.
Well, we got clarification, it's 15 and then 3 in other areas.
18 total.
Okay. You want to get up here?
No, I really don't. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm glad you heard it. Okay. All right. This is the hallway in that same addition where the classroom areas are. This, you can see it's been finished with the new painting, the ceiling, the new lights. The floor has not been finished here. That will be done before we...
They are working on it literally as we speak.
Really? Let's see that. The floor in that hallway. Okay. Okay, now we look at things that are behind locked doors.
Now you see what it sounds
Now I know it sounds like that. This is our Performing Arts Center, the front of what had been our auditorium. It's the roughest space probably in the entire building right now, and we have some nice pictures here. This is on the, if you're on the stage, the left-hand side. This will be the access ramp where people can come to the stage without coming down the stairs. So this will eventually be at the same grade as the stage. Okay? Now, this is from the same stage looking out what had been our orchestra pit with this now broken down, I did it again. Thank you. Broken down railing is being replaced by a permanent wall. There'll still be an area there under the stage, so people can access it. Interesting enough, as we looked at plans of this earlier, let me know if I'm getting this wrong, this area over here, instead of an orchestra pit, we're going to have an orchestra area, which will be closed off with a glass wall, which I really like a lot, because then parents who come and see their kids in the pit can see them instead of just hearing them. It'll be glassed off with some air amplification, okay? And then the last one is looking out from the stage, right, toward the back wall. As we've seen the commons, and the students have seen the commons wall, that has the wood along the bottom and it's painted above, that large wall. This is the other side of that. And here we have our control booth, sound and light control booth. This will go all the way up to the ceiling. The top level will have the portable spots that they'll use for shows, which I hope there's lots of. And in between the levels, as you can see right through there, there's a spiral staircase. It's on this side, and you cross over to the other side to get higher. So we're real excited about that, because once that gets finished, and this equipment can get out, they'll be pouring the floor, and then we'll really see it taking shape. Anything else? Is that it? Oh, we have some more. Next slide, please. Okay, now we have the newest addition, the area that's going the same width as the former area vocational center, and just keep going out 125 feet? 30 feet. Each classroom has 3 large windows. The center area has light monitors to bring area into the space in the hallways, and it's built in the same model as what we have earlier with 2 sides of classrooms and the smaller classrooms in the middle. And you can see this area, that is this area. As they're working on the outside, the brickwork I think was finished today. The face brick at the bottom. They're building out the classrooms every day. So it's taking shape, and hopefully we will have students in there in August of next year. That's the last slide, correct? Oh no! Oh, the best slide! We have some lockers. And this is, I will say, this is the exception of the lockers. These are all trimmed up and ready to go. Good slide, though. Some of them are just in there and still need some work on installation. But we have lockers, and many truckloads have arrived. This is a hall locker, and this is a locker room locker, right? Which locker room is that?
That's the boys' locker room.
Boys' locker room. That is the last slide, all right? Okay, thank you. In addition to that, buildings and grounds will be coming to the board in the next few months with a discussion of items for the summer construction season. There was a lot of discussion to keep the list concise, so we make sure that all projects are done in time for school to open, so we don't have the problems that have occurred the last 2 years, really. So there will be projects that are all doable and be ready for students to arrive next August. And we'll be discussing that next.
And the modulars that have been out, we're down to 6, and they all have new axles and tires in them. I took pictures and witnessed, and I'm hoping by next Monday those are all gone. So those have had 2 birthdays, and I'm ready to take care of myself.
The wheel is easier to move.
It's also the letter of abandoned property work. That's a good one. I have a question. For the performing arts area,
yes,
there's a lot of construction that remains in there. What's the anticipated date of completion where we'll see?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Okay.
You know, when they started this, I laughed and they said we'd have it by March. And then they said June. Our goal is to have it for the beginning of school.
Okay.
And I think that's a doable goal. Because I think once the floor gets poured and there's concrete to work from, things will even speed up even further. But we paid all these consultants to design this well. So the final touches on all that are going to be very time consuming. Or we paid that acoustic engineer, and they have the layers of drywall that go up. It's double layered everywhere, and then the drywall in the ceiling gets hung. It's not rigid. There's a little bounce to it. That's all going to be time consuming to do. So that's
Do
an
we
interesting
anticipate
question.
any supply issues or like lockers?
No, we're not going to put any lockers in there.
But any similar supply concerns?
Most of it is, that's an interesting question. Because I asked if they had started production on our seats today at a construction meeting. They said, no, we need to have it finished so we can do the final measurements to get the number of seats. So that is a concern of mine, that we may have a finished shell and seats maybe not here. That's an honest concern.
Well, thank you.
Jennifer, is that okay to be concerned about that?
Yeah.
Very good.
Very legitimate.
I think the shell will be finished.
Okay. Well, what about the addition on the south side with the band and choir rooms? What do we anticipate for that? I know people drive by and they see it. They probably want to know.
Well, we're told all the steel for that is on site,
Okay.
which is good. So, but there's a lot of pieces that you have to put steel up and the sheathing, then they have to do brickwork. The brickwork may be the most difficult because there's the issue of winters coming. And then there was a discussion also about making sure once you have your decking up, how you can get the roof done and glued down sufficiently during winter. So, once again, we may have a shell and some things that were really hard during the spring. But in many ways, those rooms are big spaces.
Right.
So there's only, there's a bathroom in the whole section. There's some water, there's no bathroom. So things that take a lot of time aren't going to be there. There's basically 2 big rooms and some storage rooms. So once they get those walls up, the interior construction shouldn't be that time consuming. Is that reasonable to say?
Yes.
Okay.
We are kind of at the mercy of weather though at this point, so hopefully.
But the supplies are here then.
Well, thank you for the update.
Well, people should see walls go up. But maybe at this point you need to update on the sign, right? Where are we?
So we're looking at this week that the power will go on to sign, and then we need to work on programming issues, but hopefully this week that should that should come online.
Good.
And that'll be with the light poles as well?
Yes.
On the south side of the high school? Okay, thank you. Let's see, next up is approval of the resolution for the sale of Neilson Elementary.
So moved. Second.
I'll start again. So we did not receive any bids for Neilson again this month, so the debate now is whether we just leave the price where it is and see if somebody comes to the fore in the next couple months, or if we want to entertain lowering it and starting over. So just so you understand, whatever we decide, if we keep the price the same, we'll just go out another 3 weeks and post it again and do anything. If we change the price, then we need to go into the motion and insert the price and then go through the formal approval process. So whatever we do, I just want you to understand the process this time.
Okay, so it hasn't been sold yet, no bids. What is, does anybody have any opinions as to whether we should lower the price or hold it as is?
I'm of my opinion that we do not lower the price at this time. I think it's a reasonable price for that many square foot and that feet on that lot. And I think we're how does one find the sweet spot for sale is always the question. And if we keep lowering it, someone just sit there around and wait till we keep lowering it and presumably paying someone to take it off our hands. I think it has value. We just haven't found the person. And we should just list it the same and see what happens. And if someone wants to talk to us about a lower price, maybe then we need to act. But if we just keep lowering it, that the message I think is dangerous.
Mr. Businessman, what do you think?
No, I think we don't have to sell it right now, and it's fair priced. It's just the times we're in. That must not be the thing moving right now. But some real estate did move on the west side of town for a big chunk of money. So so I'm with that to wait, just see what happens. My opinion.
I think we should just keep it. I don't think there's more.
Okay. I share the same wisdom. I believe that is a fair price, and I think we really do just need to find the right buyer for it. I know that there's been some discussion as to potential uses of the property. Hopefully, some action will be taken.
Just to be clear, you can sell without a minimum bid. You can go through the process. That does not require you to accept the high bid. So if you run, the process is exactly the same. You receive bids. If you're not happy with them, you can reject all bids. The only difference with a no minimum bid sale is you don't have the option to list with a realtor, which you're not pursuing at this point anyway. So that would be Member Lyon mentioned talking to a prospective buyer about a lower price. The problem with the structure is you really can't negotiate. It's a bid. So the only way to find out if there's someone who's just slightly below your minimum would be to sell with no bids. If you're not happy with the bids that come in, you can always reject all bids. You're never locked in.
That being said, does that change the recommendations?
Right now, we don't. We just have. That's an interesting concept. See what's out there, and then turn it down if we don't like it. Because we did how many groups of walkthrough? 3 groups of walkthrough.
That puts another spin on it for me. But putting that minimum kind of scares people. So maybe we go the route that Luke just said, and get at least conversation going, get some dialogue going. Because I think now the way it is, they're looking at it and say, oh, we're not even interested. Well, if we go to what you're talking, at least we can get negotiations going or some dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that you get a handful of bids that effectively waste your time. Somebody thinks they're going to get it for a song. You just reject all bids, but otherwise your process is the same. The resolution still has, an opening. The highest, I believe we wrote it for the highest 3 bidders, then can raise their bid on opening, so you can scratch out potentially a little more. The only downside to not having a minimum is you can't list it with a realtor. But at this point, you've gone twice and you haven't used that option. So if you're not planning to list it, then my sense would be to not use the minimum, because you can always, if whatever that high bid is not acceptable to the board, you reject all bids, and then either you hold the property and do this later, or you do it again.
John, your thoughts? I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, that's fine. I have thoughts. I think either is actually a viable path. If you're, the positive side of going to no minimum is, as Luke said, the negative side of that is people might go to a lot of due diligence and then we reject all bids, and then you might take people away just for a future, like, forget it. I'm not even going to go there anymore. And so that's the peril. But at the same time, to get the ball rolling, I don't think it's a bad path going forward.
So Luke, if you go down that path, and you reject any and all, you can never use a realtor?
No, you would have to repost again with a minimum. So right now, because you've posted with a minimum, you could, instead of restarting the notice process, you could list the property with a realtor. The catch is the realtor has to get the property sold within 120 days, and it has to be at or above your stated minimum. So that's not, there's no action item before the board tonight to hire a realtor. So if you're not planning to use that avenue at this point, then the minimum becomes to some degree arbitrary, other than it cuts out, your time wasters.
Thank you. I'm at the point of what Luke just explained. I don't know if I can redate it, but take that minimum off and see what's out there and see if get some dialogue going at least, and maybe we can come to terms with somebody. We vetted it a couple times, and obviously that's not.
So I would like to add with the timing of it, okay? So it's like trying to sell a house. They say never sell a house, during this time period, basically, until Valentine's Day. If we're going to do that, I would recommend that we probably lengthen the timeline on the sale, because people are going to have to do their due diligence. There's holiday periods in there. There's trouble getting in. I would just wait until the January board meeting, because at the end of the day, we're not out anything, because nobody's going to do anything in December anymore. So if we came back in December, we'd be lengthening it out to just go to January. So what I'm saying is, why don't we post this as a no minimum if we're going to go that route, and do it and just say we're going to go. I'm just looking at my calendar there, so I have the exact dates. If we said until January, like the 4th, that's a Tuesday, that would give us enough time to at least talk about it and get something going before the January board meeting, rather than keep doing this every month. And then give people a longer time to come in and look at it. We'll advertise it, and obviously there's a change in status, so we have to advertise it.
Is that long enough? I mean, with holidays and all that, should you put it out into February? Because if you wait right at first year, nothing happens.
Well, if you're going to do that, then I would probably do it. I wouldn't go all the way there. Maybe go to like the 19th of January or something.
I would go deeper into January in that first week.
Yeah. And then that would give people more than enough time to look, and then that would give us some more time to wait till the February board meeting. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. So now we'll later, what does the resolution have to, what's the motion?
It'd be the same resolution, you're just changing, so basically what you do is you work backwards from when your bid opening is going to be. So you set that date, then you can pass your resolution now, but your notices aren't gonna be, they're gonna be published for those 3 consecutive weeks leading up to the bid opening.
We could do more than 3, we could do one next week.
You can do more, but you have to publish notice for the 3 consecutive weeks prior to the opening. So there's nothing that prohibits you from doing more. So the date that you open is entirely up to the board. I don't have any opinion on that at all. It's just, once you set that date, you back into the notice schedule. The legal notice schedule. You can, again, always do additional notice on your own.
Because another thought process is you may have some people that want to do some year-end business, and so you may not get it closed in December, but I mean you may strike a deal.
Well, but they would still have to submit a bid.
We'd have to wait till the deadline.
That's the
So
frustration.
if I have somebody come and they want to give us $600,000 tomorrow, I can't do it.
You'd have to.
Third bid date as January 22nd, we have to wait till the.
Right.
That's the problem. End of the year folks can't exercise.
Unless it's another unit of government, you have to go through this very rigid notice and sale process. It is incredibly frustrating because that is not how the private sector buys real estate.
Right.
Well, it sounds like I've seen a lot of heads nodding as far as doing the no minimum. The question is how long to require it.
Well, I would ask that it go no later than the 26th of January. That would give us enough time to that everything. That gives us 2 weeks.
Does that sound good to everyone? Any opposition? Okay. And I believe we need to amend the motion then. Is that correct?
I think we have to just resolve that sale with the direction not to have a minimum and to make the date.
Well, the resolution doesn't have a precedent.
No, we just insert that. We're just stuck at this stage. So as it stands right now, what I'm writing down is no minimum proposed for opening on the 26th of January, which is a Wednesday, the 3 preceding weeks at minimum. Before that, we would do more, but to comply with the law. Right?
Okay.
So we have Courtney to be first and second, so for that.
Allison?
Ryan?
Yes.
Phelps?
Yeah.
Rodriguez? Aye. Kirby?
Aye.
Estab? Aye. Fletcher? Montez?
Okay, next on the agenda is consider the approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Galesburg Public Library.
So this is.
We need a motion and a second.
I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
I apologize. So this is a response to some communication I've had with the public library. Essentially, we have students that reside in our district or outside of our district. And when they're outside of our district, they typically don't qualify for a library card, but they have some in-kind services that provide us by providing all of our students with library cards. So they need this as a measure of those services they're providing. This is a yearly process that we have.
We've done this in the past.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Any questions? Allison?
Phelps?
Yes.
Rodriguez? Aye. Kirby?
Aye.
Estab? Aye. Fletcher? Aye. Montez?
Aye.
Ryan?
Yes.
Okay. The fun part. A discussion on resolutions for the delegate assembly. Remember, Rodriguez is our delegate.
Duly chosen.
Yes. So.
That's on page 9.
Do we want to go through each one of these, or just want to, any of them that members have objections to?
I would like a vote of no and 2.
What do you do?
I agree.
What's that?
2.
I have concern about 2. I would agree, all the other ones that they recommend adoption are quite reasonable. That other one, I think
Yeah, by all means, we're in discussion.
We have a delegate assembly where they give us new resolutions to vote for or against, and then they recommend what they would think that we would like us to do. The one that we were talking about is student safety and protection plan.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds great. They recommend that we adopt this plan, and it basically says, student safety and protection plans will allow voluntary district employees in any capacity the ability to carry a concealed firearm on district property, provided the employee has a void card, holds a certified concealed carry license, and has completed all additional trainings and certifications set forth by the representative school board. So we do talk about that right now. How do you guys feel about that? That's a strong one, and I've heard before that there's always gun runs on this.
This one has been presented, similar ones have been presented in the past, so.
The district that put it forward justify it because they feel they don't have either its finances or the ability to hire school safety officers. There's two pieces I want to reference in terms of that discussion. And this is for a long-term discussion. The efficacy of school safety officers in making schools safer has not been proved. Okay? But outside of that issue, I was at a workshop for COVID, so 2 years ago, that the FBI in Springfield put on about security on faith-based organizations. And they were bragging, or they're saying, there's a problem because even their trained agents are accurate only 20% of the time with their firearms. Does that sound right?
I would not necessarily agree with those things.
That's what they said, okay? And I'm really concerned about a proliferation of weapons in a school and people arming our teachers. The way they presented it, it's a district rights issue, and the district has the ability to decide it. I'm not sure I want as a district to support having that ability, that right. That's other thoughts.
Anybody else?
I understand that it's been an ongoing issue for this particular district, and I just think this particular district needs to figure out a budget that allows them to have.
While it says this district has money to hire a student resource officer, it struggles to hire for people at the school.
Is it? I'm gonna turn my mic off now.
Anybody else?
I say no.
I'm going to chime in with my 2 cents. I am familiar with situations where armed school resource officers have prevented active shooter incidents. Offhand, I believe there was one in Dixon a few years ago. And thank goodness nothing happened, but there wasn't a school resource officer there that did prevent the incident. And I'm sure there's others. And I also feel as though that they are arguing that this is about local control. It's not a situation where they're telling us that we have to do it, but if it's your school district and you feel as though this is something you need in your district based upon response time of local law enforcement, we're fortunate that we have a police agency, actually at least 2 police agencies right here in town, and their response time would be relatively short. I know a lot of areas within the state of Illinois where they might have 1 police agency for the entire county, and there might be just 1 or 2 officers working in there, and so the response time would be substantially larger. So their problems aren't necessarily the same as ours, and their needs and abilities aren't the same as ours. And again, this is an issue of local control. It'd be like the city of Chicago telling us how we should run our school. the needs of the Chicago school districts are substantially different than Galesburg. That's my opinion. Shall we vote on this one?
You
No.
Well, you just drop over.
No.
You're giving Courtney your opinion so that she will.
I would like you to use this.
No. Okay. I think everybody's member staff.
Oh, it's not.
Okay. Yeah. Rebecca? Okay. Are there any other resolutions that people have opposition to?
Number 9.
What's that?
Health and sex education curriculum. Be it resolved that the Illinois Association of School Boards shall support and advocate for local school district control of content and curriculum for health and sex education courses offered in their districts. The resolution committee recommends do adopt.
Member Phelps?
I guess it comes down to, just like your comment on the guns, it's, sometimes I have a hard time deciphering it. If this resolution passes, that's not dictating to 205 that we have to do that, correct?
It's saying that you have the right to do it.
What do we currently have? If they're putting this out there, what do we currently have?
This is basically allowing districts who don't agree with the state guided health and sex ed curriculum to say they don't have to follow it.
And that being said, even these resolutions don't have any legal standing.
Right.
It's just us voicing our opinions.
Right, this is just us voicing our opinion. So, I mean, at this point, all districts have, or I think most districts, if not all, have opt-out opportunities for parents. If as a parent you don't want your child participating in part of the health sex ed curriculum, you have the ability to opt your child out. So this is redundant. You don't, as a district, you don't have to then have the authority to say, I don't like that. And to me, that's slippery ground, because then districts can start writing their own curriculum, and then what the hell does a credit mean? No, we have state standard for credit. If you don't agree with some of the lessons that are being taught, then you have that option as a parent to opt out.
Anybody else want to voice their concerns?
Oh, let's see that.
Okay, do we have any other objections to the resolutions?
What's everybody's thought on number 15? I concur, you say do not adopt.
It's child safe gun storage.
Yeah, read through what's exactly asking for. The titles are going as descriptive.
It's requiring gun owners to store firearms, whether they be loaded or unloaded, in a securely locked container if a person under the age of 18 is likely to gain access of the weapon without permission. They recommend do not adopt that. So I guess I'm confused.
So they're asking for stronger gun safety law, like basically, because this would be or so that somebody can't take.
Like at home?
This is at home.
But what it does is it allow what this is saying. The rationale is that if we have this gun safety and procedure in place, then that student wouldn't be able to bring the gun to school because it's locked behind a safe. That's what I think the rationale is. I don't know.
In which case it's for Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily our business, but I would encourage everybody to simply store their goods. Any other resolutions that have concern?
Well, thank you all.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you taking
Saturday morning.
taking our voice to the community.
So just to recap.
Lifetime appointment.
I'll do it every year.
In 10 days. 10 days. So there's an annual conference held every year in which school board and districts have an ability and they hold to attend a conference in Chicago. And part of that is that we have the opportunity to tell the Illinois Association of School Board as an entity, as individual districts, what of these resolutions we would be willing for them to have ongoing conversations with legislators about what we feel is important as far as new legislation to consider. So these are literally proposals that are written by other districts, and if CUSD 205 ever has one that we want to write and we want to submit, we have that opportunity to do so as well. But then at this meeting, Courtney as our rep holds, well, it won't be a paddle anymore because they're going to digital, it'll be a clicker. Courtney casts a vote in that assembly as to how Community Unit District 205 feels about whether or not we think that should be something that we support as an entity or not. So just to give a kind of a background to you all.
And it's one district, one vote, regardless of size and location. Okay, moving on. Consider approval of school improvement plan for Churchill Junior High. Thank you. Thank you.
So this is part of a requirement for the 1003A grant, which is part of the school improvement process in the state of Illinois. Churchill was identified due to chronic absenteeism for special education students. And so we have to create an action plan essentially for how we remediate that deficit area. We are working on that. We have the school improvement plan before you, which also is part of the board goals that are identified through there. You see attendance and truancy is one of those. We are working to make sure that all students, including our subgroups, are attending consistently. Part of that requirement is getting our school improvement plan taken care of. It should be noted that this did not open up until last Monday, and the application was due by December 1st and board approved. We were kind of on the good side of that, having a board meeting coming up, so I wanted to make sure I got that through this month.
Sounds like a lot of last minute work.
Yeah.
Any questions? Allison?
Sherby?
Aye.
Westham? Aye. Fletcher? Aye. Samantha?
Aye.
Ryan?
Yes.
Phelps?
Aye.
Rodriguez?
Aye.
Excellent. Next, need a motion to consider approval of the personnel report.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
Short one.
Yes. Allison?
Statement.
Westham? Aye. Fletcher? Aye. Samantha?
Aye.
Ryan? Phelps?
Aye.
Rodriguez? Aye. Sherby?
Aye. And next is the grievance update. Dr. Asple.
Thank you. We do have one outstanding grievance that was filed last week regarding the school improvement day, and GEA is asserting that it violated the contract. We don't agree.
Okay. And next is a report on FOIA requests.
We have 3. Local labs, whatever that is, like the FOIA things. They are FOIAing anything having to do with any purchase contract with Panorama Education. We don't have anything with Panorama Education, so we didn't give them anything.
Local labs is about blogs.
Second, register mail, FOIA all ESSER fund expenditures that they said they're doing an article on for later. And 3, Smart Procure, who also likes to send out FOIA requests, ask for all purchasing records from August 22nd of this year to current.
I bet they got a good list.
Is it August?
Yep.
You get it digitally?
Yes, digitally.
And they can manipulate it.
Okay. And we're approaching the end. Comments by members of the Board of Education. Let's start on my left, on the way down to Grievance. Member Phelps.
I have a few things if I could. I'm taking theirs, okay?
And I missed it last month.
Move on.
Okay, part of the Buildings and Ground Committee, I didn't do this and I meant to. I'd like to thank all the staff at currently Galesburg High School because they went through a lot of days of the school year. I appreciate the flexibility they've shown. You know, they began school late. They began without floors in places. They began without heating places. They began without their whiteboards. They began without some of the furniture finished. And they're still working without lockers. All those things, except the lockers, are in place now. And I appreciate the patience people have shown. And we'll get the lockers up to hopefully before everyone's wearing coats. Okay, 2 other things I heard from friends, many positive comments on the Churchill Lombard Fall Fine Arts concerts. I'm sorry I didn't attend any. And I hear they were really good. Did you have a job?
There's another one December 1st, I'll remind you. You can come sit with
Thank
me.
you. Okay, and lastly, I was glad to see the band performing yesterday in the Veterans Day Parade. I don't know how those drum masters, what do you call them? Drum majors. Walk backwards on their tiptoes, though. That was amazing. The music was good, too. All right, thank you, band.
Thank you, Member Lyon. Member Vestal.
I just wanted to thank the young lady who came to speak about her concerns about the dress code. I think it's always a good thing for us to review policies, especially if they are targeting certain populations, taking a look at those things and seeing what we can do better. So I just wanted to say that. Unfortunately, she left, so hopefully she gets my message. Whoever has her.
Thank you. Member Cervantes.
What'd you say?
No comment? Okay, well, I'll open that with a no comment as well. Let's get this meeting done. Any future agenda items?
I would like an update on our outreach procedures and how we're operating those. The reports for this month were a little bit scattered. So as a board member, I just, we had a lot of transition in our outreach program in the 7 years that I've been on the board. So I just kind of like an update on what we're doing now and how those efforts are moving forward, considering the high touch points we need after COVID.
Thank you. Excellent idea. Any other future agenda items?
Perhaps we can do it. Remember that have to go through dress code and do that.
Okay. Ryan? Okay. Future meeting date, Monday, December 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor? Aye.